All right, for those of you who are watching this interview, we're at the meeting house. It's quite busy in here today, so if there is any background noise, I'll try to add the captions to this video so you can read through the captions as well and find those written responses. But thank you, Lawrence, for speaking up. I appreciate that it is kind of noisy in here right now.
It's actually a really good thing.
It is. I haven't seen this many people in here on a Wednesday morning, so this is really great. Okay, so Red Bank Locals here with Lawrence Miller, who's running for the Red Bank Commission. Welcome, Lawrence. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, and appreciate you having me on your show.
Fantastic. So local elections are coming up on November 8th. And the citizens of Red Bank would like to get to know you a little bit more. So can you tell us who you are and why you're running for the Red Bank Commission?
Sure. Well, my family moved to the Chattanooga area about 30 plus years ago. And we lived mostly in Hickson, but several years ago we were in that kind of empty nest situation with our kids grown and gone. And so we were looking to downsize. And to be honest, Red Bank was on my radar back then, 7 or 8 years ago. But it took a couple of years and an interim move to kind of find the right place for us. And we were really fortunate. We were able to build a small home in the White Oak area in Red Bank, and it really turned out to be the smartest thing we've ever done. It was great. My background is primarily in higher education, leadership and administration, and people who know me will pretty much tell you that I'm a person who can solve problems, manage complex organizations, and really build teams collaboratively. I love to have openness and transparency, and particularly I like to listen to other people's thoughts. So I have my ideas about what Red Bank can be and should be, but I really want to hear what people have to say. So I've been trying to engage in meeting people in Red Bank and hear what they have to say too. So my name is Lawrence Miller, and I am running for Red Bank Commission. And the reason I'm running is that I really love Red Bank, and I really want to see Red Bank become what I think could be the best small city in the Southeast.
Fantastic. All right, so one of the key things about Red Bank's mission is that it really is a thriving small town community. But one of the things that the mission says is that it wants to make sure that we're engaging the citizens and that we're building transparency and that we're welcoming all who live, work, worship, and play here. So we want to know, how have you embodied that mission as a citizen of Red Bank prior to running for commission?
Well, that's a really good question. And when we first moved here 5 years ago, the first thing I really did was to meet my neighbors. I got out, my wife and I walk a lot, and in just a few months, we honestly knew more neighbors here in Lower Red Bank than we did in 20 plus years living in another part of the area. So I'm a former political science major.
Okay.
So I always pay attention to local government. I've always been engaged every place we've ever lived. And so it's kind of natural for me to begin to follow Red Bank's city government. I've tried to really learn a lot about our government. I've met with the police chief, the fire chief, I know the public works director very well, the city manager. These are all people that I've made an effort to connect with, and I think Red Bank has an excellent staff in general, and I'm very excited about the potential to work with them. Now, there are a few things that I did specifically to engage in the community. I've taken advantage of a lot of volunteer opportunities. I've worked with day of service cleanups, weed wrangle, and I've really enjoyed meeting a lot of people. Red Bank really is a community because people know each other, and I think that's really awesome, and something I definitely don't want to lose. Uh, Now, I began actually attending Red Bank Commission meetings really during COVID. That was online, but when it became okay to show up, I've been to most every Red Bank Commission meeting for over a year now. I've made comments at a number of the meetings. I've spoken out on various things like the digital transformation, waste or stormwater runoff, you know, pickleball, a whole bunch of different things. I think it's really important for citizens to show up at those meetings, and I've made an effort to do that. I've also been able to be a member of the Red Bank Jubilee Planning Committee, which has evolved into an events planning committee, and was part of the group that really put together the Red Bank Jubilee, which I think was a fantastic event on May 7th. So that these are ways that I've connected kind of specifically, but there's a couple of bigger things that I've gotten involved with that I've been very excited about. One of them is the group that came together and became known as Save Red Bank Central Park, and this is a thing that I'm very passionate about. I definitely want to see the property that served as a campus to Red Bank High School and Red Bank Middle School for 70 years, and it's just been laying vacant for the past decade. It's time we think about creating an epic park there. So that group was something that I've been engaged with for over a year. It's been really gratifying to work with people that care about this issue. The other thing that I've done, and it's really turned out to be very profound to me personally, as well as informing me a lot about Red Bank, is I've been working on two projects that are interrelated. Over a year ago, I started a photo collection that I called 10,000 Photographs of Red Bank, Tennessee. It's kind of a bold concept. This is an online repository of images of Red Bank. It's on Flickr, and there's about 1,400 images up there already.
Wow.
We'll get to 10,000 at some time, but it'll take a while. But that it's not a historical thing, it's current photos. Most of them, frankly, are my photos that I've taken around Red Bank. But if you want to see what Red Bank is like, you can go there and you look at 1,400 photographs of Red Bank, you're going to know a lot about what's happening in Red Bank. The thing that sort of evolved slightly from that is really cool is I'm co-author of a forthcoming book, A Pictorial History of Red Bank, and I've been setting up here at the meeting house and collecting photographs. People bring me photographs and I scan them, and then we have a digital copy that we can use for the book. They also go to the 10,000 Photos of Red Bank online site too. I've met so many people from Red Bank. A lot of them are kind of what I would consider legacy families, like the Christmans and the Cooleys and the Swaffords, and really neat people who helped me on this project and brought me images and helped me understand the history of Red Bank. Every city in America has a story. Red Bank's story is, it may not be unique in a sense, but it's really worth learning about. There are so many people that came to Red Bank and they take risks and they create some enterprise, and it's just really neat to go back and look at maps and photographs and other things, and it's really informed me as to what Red Bank is, and I like to look back at the history of Red Bank to help me move forward as a candidate for the Red Bank Commission.
Fantastic. Thanks. So we talked a little bit about your alignment with the Red Bank mission and what you've brought to the city prior to running for commission. What is your primary platform, and how does it align to the vision and the future of where the direction of Red Bank's going?
Right. I think there are four areas that I really want to focus in. The first is actually parks and recreation. We clearly need more parks, and we need more access to the facilities that we have in the village, facilities that we will have in the future. Parks and recreation is a really important part of the quality of life of Red Bank, and a lot of people look to Red Bank as a place to live. If we have more availability of parks and green spaces and recreational areas, we're going to be a better city. Secondly, I think we need to focus more on neighborhoods. Red Bank is made up of a collection of different neighborhoods. Historically, it's been that way, and it's still that way. So we have, Valdue, which is the old name for Lower Red Bank, and we have Midvale, and we have White Oak, and the central section in North Red Bank, Alpine. There's all these communities around here. That's really neighborhoods. I would like to see Red Bank develop a system for neighborhood associations. Chattanooga has used this very successfully. There are people that work at the staff of the city of Chattanooga that work specifically with neighborhood associations. We don't have those in Red Bank. I think it's something we should look at. Also, I think we should look at neighborhood watch. This is a safety issue. I know people that I've talked to, they have some concerns about safety. Red Bank is basically a pretty safe place to live, but we still have, some break-ins and vandalism and things like that. And if people are watching each other in our neighborhoods, that will make us a safer city. I think that's a good idea. I think we need to do a much better job with businesses in Red Bank. Businesses are hampered by a number of things. New businesses in Red Bank are not able to build in part because we have a sewer moratorium that prevents development on certain key areas along the boulevard here. So there are obstacles, but we can work on those. But I think there are also opportunities. I'm very big on small businesses and entrepreneurship, and I think we need to do a better job on those things. But finally, I think there's some services that need to be enhanced, and there's a variety of these. The city won't do all of these. Some of these need to be done in collaboration with not-for-profit groups and other governmental agencies in the area and so forth. But we don't have a library. We need a community library. We need to return the availability of public transportation. The last bus ran down Dayton Boulevard about 1995. That's a long time without public transportation. Red Bank has a fantastic history of public transportation, going back to a trolley line, an electric trolley line that ran from 1917 to 1929 and took 1,500 riders a day to work. So transportation is something we can definitely work on too. There's other areas that need improvement. I'd love to be able to clean up Stringer's Branch. I think there are areas in our central business district right here in Red Bank that just frankly need to be brought up to looking better. I think we need more public art as well. I'd love to see Red Bank be more walker friendly and more bike friendly as well. So those are the four things that I want to talk about. But again, it's not just about me talking about things. I want to hear the reaction of people to my ideas.
I appreciate you bringing up those four areas, Larry. We appreciate the depth and knowledge that you bring to this city, and hearing about the trolley is really interesting. It's always one of my favorite stories. So thank you for that. All right. So Red Bank locals in the area would like to hear a little bit more on your position on a couple of primary topics that have been brought up within the city, and also some of the initiatives that have been talked about at the strategic planning meeting earlier. One of the, well, not earlier today, but earlier this year, one of the things that is a hot topic right now is commercial development, and what does that look like for Red Bank? So what is your position on commercial development for Red Bank in the future?
Well, I think the key to development is actually small business. I personally have been a small business owner for many years. I was also the Dean of the Business and Information Technology Division at Chattanooga State, so I have a real connection with business. I love entrepreneurs, I love small businesses. We've got some really good things happening. If you take the section of White Oak that starts at Memorial and goes south, starting with the mustard seed and the art store, and of course the historic Red Bank Barber place will be going forever. But things that are happening like mangoes and Bud Floral, and particularly Clever Ale House, that's a really good stretch. I like the idea of emphasizing antiques and collectibles. I think that's something Red Bank can be really known for. But commercial development is also very tied in with residential development. We need more density, and we have to come up with some smart ways to allow more people to come into Red Bank and to have affordable quality housing. I think the two are really connected together. If you look at the success of North Chattanooga, it's successful because more people live there. So the commercial development aspect and residents go together. I'd like to see us develop a Red Bank small business collective where our small business work together and support each other. I have some more details about this type of stuff on my website that will flesh this out a little bit more.
Perfect. Thanks, Lawrence. All right, for those of you who are watching this interview, we're at the meeting house. It's quite busy in here today, so if there is any background noise, I'll try to add the captions to this video so you can read through the captions as well and find those written responses. But thank you, Lawrence, for speaking up. I appreciate that it is kind of noisy in here right now.
It's actually a really good thing.
It is. I haven't seen this many people in here on a Wednesday morning, so this is really great. Okay, so one of the other hot topics is Parks and Rec. So I think you alluded to a little bit earlier on your stance on that, but can you give us a little bit more detail on what your thoughts are on Parks and Rec within Red Bank?
Right. Well, Parks and Recreation is not just about one place. It's really about a lot of places. Unfortunately, Red Bank is really pathetically low in the amount of parks that we have and the availability of those parks. We have less than 1% of our land, and we have 6.5 square miles in Red Bank that could be classified as park or recreational space. But a lot of that is not really accessible. If you have like the softball fields and the baseball fields, the only people that use that are the teams that play in those games. Many of those teams don't even come from Red Bank. So we have to do a better job. The fact that the city is hiring a parks professional right now, and that actually grew out of the strategic planning process, I think that's fantastic. I applaud our city manager for developing a budget that really creatively created some new positions that will help. And this parks thing is really important. I'm all in on the pickleball thing. It's America's fastest growing sport. It's huge, and we've got 3 courts that were built recently, and 3 more were just approved at the last commission meeting. I think we ought to have a pickleball complex where the tennis courts are in the city park, and we ought to build a new tennis court that is in city-owned property behind the city hall. We could have tennis courts and we could have basketball courts. There's not a single publicly accessible basketball court in Red Bank. We need to do better on that.
Great, and we really appreciate hearing what you said earlier about the Central Bank, Save Central Red Bank Park. It's really interesting that you mentioned that. Is there any information or thoughts on White Oak Park and what you think that we can do with like trail systems or anything of that nature?
Yeah, well, I think White Oak Park is the one real success story that we have with parks. It's really a great place to go and walk yourself or walk your dog. I mean, that dog park is a really good dog park. And the pavilion at the top is a nice gathering place. They're going to be doing some work to kind of fix up the ponds that are down at the bottom down there. And the White Oak Connector Trail, I'll be honest, it was a little disappointing to see that it's basically a service road, but it does serve the purpose of connecting White Oak Park to the trail system on Stearns Ridge, and that's really a good thing. There's more that can be done at that park. We could probably have a better soccer field up at the top. But it's a really good start. It's a nice area. There's also some adjacent land that belongs to Tennessee American Water Company, and I'm really hopeful that perhaps in the future we can work with them to expand the park itself.
Thanks, Lawrence, for talking about Parks and Rec. Let's move to the next topic. All right, so one of the other primary topics that is on the agenda to talk about today is improving multimodal transportation within Red Bank. So what does that look like for you?
Well, I was at the Planning Commission retreat last March. Spent pretty much the whole time there with the commissioners as an observer. I guess if I was disappointed about one thing, it was that transportation didn't really rise up enough. I mentioned earlier that Red Bank had a trolley, electric trolley. Wouldn't that be nice? It's probably not going to happen. But we could have some kind of bus, even if it's just a van that runs back and forth on Dayton Boulevard. The loss of the Save-A-Lot store down there really impacted a lot of people in Lower Red Bank who only were able to shop there because they walked there. They've lost that ability. We basically have one grocery store, so we need a better way for people to get around, and we can make Red Bank more walkable. We can make Red Bank more friendly to bikes, but there's also something we need to do in terms of the traffic that's on Dayton Boulevard, and we need to think seriously about what the future of Dayton Boulevard really looks like. People talk, that I've talked to in my book project, about how people walked everywhere in the old days. And this area right around where we are at the meeting house was the hub. The school was across the street over there, and this was the central thing, and everybody could walk. Right now, you kind of take your life in your hands if you are trying to cross Dayton Boulevard, even if you're using the flashing crosswalks. So I'm concerned about the flow of the traffic. We need to figure out some way to slow it down. We also need electric vehicle charging stations. We don't have a single one in Red Bank, and that is the future. In 20 years, we will be driving electric everything, and we have to start getting ready for that.
I couldn't agree more than electric, but it's not my opinion. It's an unbiased page, but that's just my 2 cents. Thank you for talking about multimodal transportation. One of the things I didn't hear you mention is biking. Is there anything that you have any information or any thoughts on cycling of any kind?
Absolutely. We have a concept that's going now, and it's got some funding for the Red Bank Bicycle Boulevard, which is essentially to allow a safe bicycle route that parallels Dayton Boulevard but isn't on Dayton. Ultimately, we need to make Dayton Boulevard bicycle friendly. That'll take some time and take some doing and take some buy-in, frankly, by a lot of people. But the beauty of Red Bank as far as the central corridor is it's relatively flat. So for people like me, that I have an electric assist bicycle that I ride around, and I don't mind kicking in the motor to help me up a hill, but it's potentially a really great bicycling town, and we have one of the best not-for-profits that I know in Red Bank with the White Oak Bicycle Co-op. So that group can be our leaders as a community organization to really help make Red Bank a better place for bicycles.
Agreed. All right, well, thank you for elaborating on the bicycle and the multimodal transportation. Let's move to the next topic. All right, our last and final hot topic is the digitization of Red Bank and how we're planning on improving Red Bank's digital capacity. So where do you stand on that? What are your thoughts on Red Bank's digital future?
Well, the future for all of us is a digital future. My personal background was I began my career as an instructional technologist. So I worked in higher education, and I used different technologies, beginning with like 35 millimeter slides and 16 millimeter film. And I've evolved through the whole process, going through video and computers. I was a leader with online learning when I was at Chattanooga State. We had one of the best online learning programs in the nation. So I have a lot of familiarity with the use of technology. I spoke to the commission several months ago about supporting their efforts to digitize all the processes of interacting with people online, and totally support that. I also caution them that digital transformation is kind of a painful change. There are a lot of people that feel like they're left out. This is, again, where a community library would be a great resource, because if people didn't have the technology, or even if they had the technology but they didn't know how to use it, that would be a place where people could go, just like the Chattanooga Public Library does a fantastic job with this in providing technology access and training and things. So there's a lot of that, but I think the city's on the right direction with the digital transformation. We need to be able to have the ability to schedule a special trash pickup on a Friday, to do a number of things in terms of getting permits and things like that. That all needs to be online and reduce the paper. It'll make things more efficient. It'll keep records better. We need a directory of Red Bank businesses, for example. There's a lot of really good that's going to come out of the digital transformation, and I look forward to being part of that process.
All right, Lawrence. Well, the Red Bank locals are super excited to hear from you and to hear on the topics that you've spoken to us about today. But I wanted to give the opportunity to open the floor to you and let the audience know if there's anything we missed or something that's top of mind or how to contact you. Just kind of let the people know and just give us a little bit of a high level of how to reach out to you and so forth. That'd be great.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Kira, and Red Bank, which I think is a fantastic idea. I'm super pumped about all the content that you're developing already, and so it's a pleasure to be part of that. If people want to find out more about my campaign, I think the best thing to do is go to my website, which is millerforredbank.com. You can also send me an email at lawrence@millerforredbank.com. All my social media links are available on my website. There's various buttons down at the bottom you can find, but I'm on Instagram, I've been on Twitter for years, Facebook, of course, and LinkedIn is the other one. And I'm also kind of a fan of Nextdoor, even though I do not use Nextdoor as a political vehicle. I am connected to a lot of Red Bank people, and I engage with them just as a person on that level. But I do want people to look carefully at my candidacy. millerforredbank.com will show you my blog. I recently had an article published in Chattanoogan.com about restaurants here in Red Bank, and a big shout out to Clever Ale in particular. It's a real pleasure to be running as a candidate in Red Bank. I love Red Bank so much. It's just become our home, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Well, that's so great, Lawrence. So thank you very much again for meeting with us. And for those of you who are watching, we will be trying to reach out to the other candidates as well, so keep an eye out.